We're following breaking news out of Georgia, where we are hearing for the first time the grand jury plans to, or recommended plans to, indict over a dozen people. Questions about whether that list includes Donald Trump. The decision is up to the DA, and you can see former federal prosecutor John Flannery is with me tonight. Welcome back, John.
Good to be with you.
I want to talk to you about the other piece of this, how it's all coming out. But I know you, and I know you're chomping at the bit. As a professional courtesy, I will also grant you first 30 seconds on the substance of the news tonight.
Well, the substance of the news is the grand jury members are frustrated, and plainly so, at least the grand jury forewoman. And she's come forth to talk, and she's inexperienced and so forth. And it may be that her imminence is too slow for her. This is the problem with the grand jury that they chose to go with, in my opinion. That is one that cannot indict. So what do I hope here? I will only believe it when I see it, when there's actually an indictment filed.
Yeah,
and,
so that's...
that the grand jury saying it, that's good, but the prosecutor wrote it, so that should be encouraging. That is to say, the grand jury is an entity that is the servant of the prosecutor.
Right. You're reminding folks that the rules work differently in different places, but there is a dance between the two. This is not some wholly independent body. It responds, as you mentioned, to the evidence put forth. I just wanted to let you speak on that because longtime B viewers know you care a lot about this stuff. Now I want to ask you about the process. Is it traditional to have a grand jury foreperson speaking out about recommended indictments before that DA or indictment process is over? And is there any complicating or negative aspect to this? Some people say, hey, if there are election crimes, go get them no matter what. I get it. We've talked on this program many times about the need for accountability. It is also incumbent in a system with the rule of law to have uniform and fair standards as much as possible. Do you see anything here that risks at least making that more complicated, if not hurting it?
Well, it is more complicated. I'm not sure how much it hurts because it was, in a way, minimal given what we believe happened. But it wouldn't surprise me that the judge is climbing around the room saying, what do you think I was doing, holding a hearing to determine whether or not we were going to release any information? And here you go off on your own, kind of running away from the grand jury and from my own order. So if I were the judge, I would summon her to a proceeding and ask her what she was thinking. And it might be as formal as an order to show cause because she has to remain silent. Now, if I'm representing the press, I would say then we should release everything.
Well, we welcome new information, so we always do wherever it leads. But just to jump in with you, what about the question of whether this is the traditional course?
Oh, no, this is not a traditional course. The grand jury material is only released on the order of the court. And when a grand jury votes a presentment or an indictment, that's often presented to the judge before it's made public.
And then, all right, so now I'm really redirecting you. You could see me in your monitor, right?
Yes, I can.
All right, so then what if the instructions from the court are for grand jurors not to release the materials from inside the grand jury process, which includes the names of those recommended for indictment, and then a grand juror in a press interview, basically, I'm going to be slightly goofy, and I'm going to paraphrase, John, but I want to get the point across. A grand juror, when asked, did you recommend Donald Trump for indictment? The grand juror goes, well, there aren't going to be any plot twists. At that point, are they conveying without saying the thing that, again, under the rules, is supposed to be secret until and unless the DA acts?
Well, and I'm leaning over because I'm looking at her words. You're not going to be shocked. And the other statement she made is you're not going to see a giant plot twist. In other words, the only person who's the target of this is a man who gave a taped conversation to the prosecutor indirectly by having the entire conversation recorded. And what she does do is she says what the evidence was before the grand jury, which was the first thing was to play the Raffensperger.
Exactly. And you and Nick are zeroing in on something. And again, we could sit around for years and have, intellectual news, legal conversations. This is the grand jury. This body of evidence plus the DA is what leads to indictments. This could very well be a step on the way to the first ever indictment of a former president of the United States.
Correct.
And the material you referenced, and I will let you respond to it, I'm reading now from, again, the foreperson says, quote, we heard a lot of recordings of President Trump on the phone. It's amazing how many hours of footage you can find of that man on the phone. Some of these that were privately recorded by people or recorded by a staffer now, or by staff. This is her view of what the DA was presenting through their staff. The
Right.
DA appears to be presenting Trump on the phone criming. What does that tell you,
Right.
John?
Well, what it tells me is that unlike most criminals, this guy was so desperate that he was talking unguardedly in every direction, thinking, I guess they'd remain silent or he'd pull this off and it wouldn't matter what they knew. And I think that as a grand juror, the foreman, putting aside the fact that she should have remained silent, found it impossible to have this information, to know it, and to be waiting for something to happen. And probably she has little experience talking to members of the journalistic estate. And so she discussed more freely than she should have what was going on. And the second point, though, is I think that there will be a question of due process raised if this goes forward the way we expect, and that Trump is indicted tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now. And their objection will be, oh, there was talk to the people about this. But I think that the content so far is of a nature that I don't think it makes very much difference, and a judge wouldn't remove it from the venue where it is in Fulton County to any other place.
Understood, and we wanted to get into that and both the complexities of that. And as you say, anyone, it could be a former president, a former government official, anyone who ends up being indicted in this process can raise anything, including whether they think this was somehow prejudicial to the jury pool, et cetera. It's a big one. It's a big breakthrough, John. I appreciate you joining us on all of it tonight.
Sure.